Hello, welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education and Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and local partner Sprocket Innovation in Paducah in the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. So this week I wanted to answer a question that I continue to get and have received it a few times over the last several weeks. But it really is one of those things. Last week we talked about awareness, and security awareness is important. But part of the security awareness discussion is that you should have unique passwords. You should have hard passwords to guess. You should have unique passwords. We should have all these things. It's very true that we should, but it always brings up the question of why. We're telling you that you should do these things. We're telling you that strong passwords are important. We are telling you that we need to do these different things, but we don't actually tell you the why. So today I really want to start answering at least, why are unique passwords important? If we're going to tell you all these things, why are we telling you these things? Why does it matter? What matters? How are bad guys, how are threat actors utilizing these things to compromise our information, to break into our organizations? How is my reusing a password a problem? You hear people say that it's unique passwords are important, but it's a challenge keeping up with multiple passwords. So how do I understand, or my goal today really is just how to help you understand why unique passwords are important. The short answer is there are databases of password hashes that are on the dark web where bad threat actors, people with bad intentions, are able to go and collect that. But that's complicated. So what I really want to do is start today breaking out what exactly that means. And it starts with understanding what a hash is. So a long time ago, passwords were sent across the web in clear text. If passwords are stored or sent in clear text today, that's a really big problem. Most companies, most organizations, most products don't do that anymore. If they do that right now, that's a real problem. Don't use them anymore. You need to find a way to do it differently. There was a period of time actually where you had the option that you could either send that password across in clear text, or you could send it over in an encrypted form. Nowadays, most of the time, what happens is that you type in your password on your computer and it immediately gets converted to a hash, and that hash is what's being sent, sometimes even encrypted again, but it's that hash that's being sent across. So a lot of times you're not even sending your password, you're sending a hash of your password. So now what does that mean? A hash algorithm, a cryptographic hash function, is a mathematical formula that takes some variable input length. It might be 3 characters like you see in that first box that says Fox. It could be the longest novel ever written. Either way, it's going to run through the hash function and it's going to produce an output, a digest of fixed length. Some hash functions are 256-bit, some of them are 384, some are 128, but the point is it's going to produce a unique set of those 256-bit character string. So if you put in Fox, run it through this cryptographic hash function, it's going to produce that digest that you see. Now, I actually think this is SHA, which is a hash function that this example is using. The next box down, the red fox jumps over the blue dog. You put it in the hash function, out comes a different digest. So if you look at the first one and the second one, they're very different. If you look at the third box, the red fox jumps The word over, they took V out and put U in and ran it again. And again, that hash function, that output, that digest looks very different from the one before. So in the third box, they switched the E and the V in over. And then in the final box, the fifth box, they just took the V out. And each time that digest looks very, very different. Now, what does that mean? That means if you put in the word password, it's going to produce a hash digest that looks something like, well, a random set of characters like this. If you capitalize the P instead of a lowercase p in that password, then it's going to look just as random as what any other set of characters would be. So if you have a long, complicated password, the hope is that it's really hard to guess your password, unless I already know what that hash function is, or there's a collision. So let me explain what I mean by collision. So this is another example that took off. I think it's off of Wikipedia. John Smith is the input. It goes through a hash function. It produces the hash 02. Lisa Smith produces the hash 01. The name Sam Doe produces 04. Sandra D also produces 02. So John Smith and Sandra D, when they are run through the hash function, they come out with the same hash, the same digest. That's called a collision. The goal of a hash function is that the only possible way to ever get the same result is with the same input. That's the goal. And let me give an example of this. For a long time, if people wrote a book or wrote had some intellectual property, they wanted to make sure that nobody else could claim to have produced. People would take the Word doc and actually run it through a hash function and then put that digest in a classified ad in the New York Times. So there was a time, and perhaps it still happens. There's probably different places to put that now, that if you went and looked at the New York Times in the classified ads, you would see some ads that were just a bunch of random characters. The idea was that in 5 years, if somebody claimed to have written something that I wrote, then I could go back and take that document, produce that hash. The only way that hash is ever going to be produced is with that same document, and then go compare it to what was in the New York Times. And the reason people would put it in the New York Times is because it would add that timestamp. So you would know exactly when it was done. Same idea with passwords. First of all, from a length standpoint, there's no way, the goal with proper hash functions today, there's no way to reproduce the same password without entering in the same password. So you can't, I said that wrong. You can't produce the same hash digest, the same output without putting in the same input. That's the whole point of passwords today. So when you hear that a long password is better, it's because a threat actor is going to have to guess your password to be able to steal your password, to be able to break into your account. So that's the first step of this, is that we don't want people to be able to guess your password. So let's assume that you have a long password that's really strong. It's doing all the things it's supposed to do. Now the likelihood of somebody stealing your password is very low. Now they're going to have to try to steal your password hash. Now, how do they do that? That's where the dark web comes in. And so we're out of time for today, but what I want to talk about next week is, now that we understand that how that hashing works, at least fundamentally, now it's about what happens, how do they steal my password hash? And that's what's happening on the dark web, which is way at the bottom of the deep web. And I'll explain what that means next week, is databases of passwords. There's ways to secure again. There's a thing called Salt that helps a little bit, or actually quite a bit. But we'll talk through all that because now what these threat actors are doing are being able to go find password databases or password hash databases on the dark web and use that. And we'll talk about that more next week. But I appreciate you joining today. This was a little technical, and I think that next week will be really interesting, especially for those that don't understand what the dark web is or deep web. You hear all these different words, and you want to know what it means. Come back next week, and we'll talk about that and how that relates to some of these other areas. But hopefully, this is helping to understand the why that we're asking you to do the things that we do in security. Hope you enjoy this. Have a good day, and thank you so much for joining us on 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye.